Well, it was huge. It was perhaps the biggest news the state of Arkansas has ever had, perhaps other than Bill Clinton being elected president. This happened right after he took office. So it was big.
In his new book, A Harvest of Innocence, Dan Stidham chronicles one of the most notorious criminal cases of the 20th century, the West Memphis 3. He tells Inside Edition Digital how the case captivated the country's attention. Stidham represented Jesse Misskelly, one of the 3 teens who were falsely accused of killing 3 8-year-old boys in West Memphis, Arkansas in 1993.
West Memphis, Arkansas, a small, close-knit community with lots of parks and places to play. The perfect place for 3 all-American, fun-loving kids like Michael Moore, Christopher Byers, and Stephen Branch to go out and pal around. 8 days ago, the boys went for an afternoon bike ride, but by nightfall hadn't returned home.
Police zeroed in on Damien Eccles and his friend Jason Baldwin, who were known to authorities due to past shoplifting and vandalism charges, as well as enjoying heavy metal music.
The unbelievable news from police. The alleged killers were practically kids themselves. Damien Eccles, 18, Jesse Misskelly, 17, and Jason Baldwin, 16, teenagers from the neighborhood, leaving parents of the victims like Pam Hobbs, the mother of Stephen Branch, facing the most agonizing of questions.
I was asking God, why God?
The trials of the 3 teenagers have become one of the biggest stories ever in Arkansas. So big, the case had to be moved because of pretrial publicity.
Started out with Damien immediately.
Okay.
We were interviewing Damien within 48 hours of the bodies being discovered because he was, according to the juvenile officer, the only person in West Memphis who could pull this off, because he was the weird kid, the kid that dressed in all black, had long black hair, wore black jeans, black combat boots, black t-shirt, listened to the wrong kind of music, read the wrong kind of books. And I'm not making this up. They actually introduced Stephen King novels in the evidence that were found in Damien's trailer in the trailer park. And along with Metallica t-shirts and other t-shirts. And in fact, Jason Baldwin was wearing a Metallica t-shirt in his mugshot. So it was just insane. Then this horrible satanic panic just kind of descended upon the town. People were talking about it because they were reading about it in the newspaper. Cops were talking to anybody and everybody, and they said they were trying to keep all this stuff secret, but what they were actually doing is trying to let everybody know what their theory was.
Another teen, Jesse Misskelly, was known to police for having an alleged history of violent outbursts. Stidham, who was a rookie lawyer at the time, would go on to represent Misskelly in court. Immediately, Stidham knew Misskelly was different from how he was portrayed.
And when I first walked in the cell, I thought, this can't be Mr. Misskelly. He's not big enough. I mean, he's just so small. And so the last thing I wanted to do that first meeting was to put a tape recorder in front of him and start taping things. So we just kind of went over the statement that he'd given the West Memphis police. And not only did he start getting the things wrong that he'd already gotten wrong, but he actually got the bodies mixed up and said there was one child who was horribly emasculated and his genitals were removed, and that's what kind of fed the satanic panic aspect of this. And that was reported by the media almost immediately. At one part in the confession in the tape, you can hear the officers, and they even say it. They're looking at a newspaper clipping from the local West Memphis Evening Times, and they're pointing to the pictures, and Mr. Misskelly is reading it. And it referred to the victim Byers and the victim Moore and the victim Branch. And so he was just pointing these people out, and they were just leading him through the entire confession. Dr. Martin Hill, who's a forensic linguist, He did an extensive study of the confession and determined that Misskelly did not tell anything to the police that they didn't already know. He offered no new information, and when he did try, he got it just terribly wrong. And the cops just seemed to glaze over it like it was nothing.
Do you know which one raped which boy, or how did that happen?
Damien raped Demar by his family. Jason raped the branch.
That confession became a major point of contention in the case. A defense psychologist testified that Misskelly had the mental capabilities of a 5 to 8-year-old child, that he didn't know what he was saying. Misskelly's lawyers moved to have the confession thrown out, but the judge allowed Misskelly's confession to stand.
The other thing that stuck out, or a couple of other things that stuck out from the confession, were the fact that he mentioned that they were bound with a big brown rope, which they weren't. They were tied up with their own shoelaces. The other was the fact that the boys hadn't skipped school that day, as he said, and Jason Baldwin was in school as well, a very good student, and he was in till 3 o'clock in school. Little boys were seen riding, the three of them riding 2 bicycles going down the service road of the interstate at 6:30 p.m. Right at actually the crime scene. You could have thrown a baseball to the crime scene from where their bodies were recovered the next day. So it's just all these things just didn't add up.
Stidham would learn that his client had a low IQ and learning disability disorder. He would enlist some of the best experts in the field to listen to Misskelly's so-called confession, and they would conclude it was forced. However, it didn't help the defendant's case. The 3 suspects were tried in court in 1994. Misskelly was tried separately, while Eccles and Baldwin were tried together. Misskelly was convicted by a jury of 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life plus 40 years in prison. Eccles and Baldwin were found guilty on 3 counts of murder. The court sentenced Eccles to death and Baldwin to life in prison.
Get back up. I never give up. I put my teeth back in the sockets and dust myself off and just keep moving forward. And a lot of days it was just like playing chess. As long as I could keep one piece on the board, I had a chance.
The case got national attention, including that of several celebrities.
And then when the help arrived, I held down the fort long enough and kept Jason and Jesse's case alive long enough for us to do the reinvestigation. Thanks to folks like Eddie Vedder and Winona Ryder and Henry Rollins and Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, they came to the rescue. The pressure that was being exerted on the state of Arkansas was tremendous. It was worldwide. They wanted this to go away.
On August 19th, 2011, Eccles, Baldwin, and Misskelly were freed as part of a deal where they made an Alford plea. In doing so, they maintained their innocence while conceding that authorities had enough evidence to convict them.
They're free! The men, known as the West Memphis 3, were released from prison Friday, 18 years after they were convicted of the shocking murders of these 8-year-old boys.
It's been an absolute living hell.
The 3 men were released because of a special type of plea bargain. Although they pled guilty, they were able to maintain that they are innocent.
The prosecution even said that the Alford plea was proposed so that the 3 men couldn't sue the state. However, the plea will continue to haunt the West Memphis 3 for the rest of their lives.
The prosecutors has even made that statement. That was part of his consideration. My client, with his intellectual disabilities, a felony conviction is not going to impact him day to day like it does the other 2, because he's never going to be able to hold down a decent job or do anything that doesn't require some supervision. But the other 2, Jason, for example, wants to go to law school, but he can go to law school, but he can't practice law because of his felony conviction.
Since their release, Misskelly has kept a low profile and has continued to live in West Memphis.
suddenly my client's free, and I fulfilled my promise to my client. And I thought it was all over at this point. I thought, hey, I kept my promise. I working on the case all the time, constantly. I was stalking experts at professional meetings. I was trying to find anybody I could that could help me, and suddenly I did.
Jason Baldwin has studied law and works for the Innocence Project. While Damien Echols has published 2 best-selling books, he moved to New York City right after his release with his wife, Lori Davis, whom he married while in prison. They talked about their relationship with Inside Edition back in 2015.
From her home in New York City, where Lori was a successful landscape architect, she sent Damien a letter in care of Death Row.
This is from the first letter I wrote to Damien. I don't know why I feel compelled to have contact with you. I just do. So I will write until you tell me to stop.
Damien wrote back.
Thank you so much for writing. I've been waiting. I knew that sooner or later someone would take notice.
Stidham, who now serves as a judge, says that what happened to the West Memphis 3 echoes the Salem witch trials.
Well, as a sociologist, that's what groups of people do, the collective community. It's everybody, this evil descends upon the town, and nobody can explain it. It's beyond explanation. It's not simply a murder. It's a human atrocity. And how could someone do that to a little kid? And nobody can wrap their mind around it. I'm not using this quote just because Elvis is from Memphis, but I think it was Elvis who once said that people are scared of things they don't understand. And that's very true. And nobody understood what was going on. And it created this, again, as we called it, a perfect storm.
The case of who killed second graders Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers in 1993 remains unsolved and currently open. Stidham is still seeking answers in the case.
I actually have a suspect. I'm not at liberty, obviously, to discuss that, but I plan on pursuing that lead as well.
For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Sal Bono.